Talk a little bit of Monday night or Monday afternoon quarterback. Got a game coming up tonight, Monday Night Football. Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the New York Football Giants. I don't really know how good that's, game is actually going to be tonight, but neither here nor there. Decided to fire up the old StreamYard account. Haven't used it in a while. Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, Twitch. Who's ever out there watching, welcome in. But I just wanted to come on for a little bit and talk about what I saw yesterday and how it pertains to some things that we can look forward. Now, the interesting thing about today also is now we are getting some trades going through, which really should impact the market. Nice move here by the New Orleans Saints to pick up Quan Alexander from the San Francisco 49ers. It's amazing in the NFL how it's such a win now, lose now proposition. Like if your team you don't figure is going anywhere, you just trade your better players off and try to reload in the draft and save up in free agency, especially in the COVID-19 era where we don't really know exactly what's going to happen over the salary cap over the next couple of years. But that's a nice move for the Saints to move up. Nice win yesterday by the Saints versus Chicago Bears. Windy, chilly conditions, not really where Drew Brees wants to be. Hard-fought game by the Chicago Bears. Gave up a 10-point lead early, only to come back and then lose that game in overtime by a field goal. But they did get the all-important cover in that game. Now, going over a couple things looking from yesterday in the NFL, I don't really want to talk too much about the Bills-Patriots game. Boring game. It was one of those where, we do the show on Sportsbook Review, and I get a laugh out of her joke when I say, everybody and they mama is going to bet the Bills in that football game, which everybody and they mama did bet the Bills in that football game and ended up taking a loss, to give it opened up 3.5 in that range, closed at 4, got as high as 4.5. It was just one of those odd numbers. And it's one of the rare occurrences where you're a Patriots backer in that game and it's 24-23. You were actually cheering wildly when Cam Newton dropped the football on the carpet at the 15-yard line. So you didn't have to go to overtime and risk maybe a touchdown. Same thing as we were looking in the Chicago Bears game. Usually when those underdogs go to overtime, it's where they go to die. But certainly not an impressive performance by the Patriots whatsoever. I mean, give them credit for hanging around with not a lot of bullets in the chamber. Cam Newton tried to will them back into that game, but this is more an indictment on the Buffalo Bills. Sitting at 6-2, I do believe, obviously, they are the best team in that division, even though the Miami Dolphins are fighting hard. But as I look at that Buffalo Bills team, I really got to wonder where that offense is going to come from. Yeah, it was windy conditions in Buffalo, but wasn't as bad as what we maybe anticipated throughout the week. Stephon Diggs with a nice game, 6 catches for 92 yards. That's nice, a byproduct there of Stephon Gilmore not playing in that game to go up against him. Harris had a nice game on the ground for New England, but they don't have a lot of pop in that offense and slowly fading out of playoff contention. Those Patriots now sitting at that 2-5 number, 0-3 on the road. So, yeah, who gets him? I don't know. He's coming off there, Joseph, injured. And who knows how bad. I guess he had an MRI, was only tweaked, but it has to appear that he's on the move at this point. It's such a Patriots move to sort of move on from Gilmore, even though he is one of the best cornerbacks in the game of football. And that's usually what you want to build your team around. But hey, I guess Bill Belichick knows better than anybody else and figured Cam Newton and his menagerie of quarterbacks that he put together this year were enough to hold the fort when clearly it was not. Because they are a slow football team. And you could say Bill Belichick, he's one of the best coaches, if not the best coach of all time in any sport. But really, a miscast of characters on this team try to blame it on the salary cap and how we're going to move forward next year. I don't know if that's going to be the case in that one. I'll tell you one of the games that was really impressive yesterday. And looking at it during the week, I thought there would be points in the game. It ended up being points in that game, 31-20. But I thought the Titans would have carried the water in that game versus the Bengals. But I got to tell you, I haven't watched the game in its entirety yet, but just watching through the red zone and certainly, yesterday seeing some highlights. Joe Burrow, 26-37, 249 and 2 touchdowns yesterday, but that doesn't paint the whole picture in that game. 4 out of your 5 offensive linemen are down in that football game from an already bad offensive line. Yes, he does have some nice weapons at wide receiver they can throw to. But now you're getting the Titans team coming in at 5-1. And really it was one of those games where I just thought the Titans would be able to run them up the flagpole and say, we're going to hit 30 points. Good luck trying to chase us with nobody on your offensive line. And how well they played yesterday was really fantastic. And Joe Burrow, number 1 overall pick, he is going to be a flat-out superstar. It's almost a shame because Zach Taylor's a good coach for the Cincinnati Bengals. Got him coached up well. The offense is moving along. You can see that week-to-week maturity of Joe Burrow. I just hope that ownership for the Bengals doesn't ruin this opportunity that they have over the next 10 years and gets cheap and doesn't provide the infrastructure for Joe Burrow to be successful, when we've seen that in the past where they have some good football teams, but they just don't want to spend up to the cap and put money out there to truly make a run at a playoff spot and also obviously an AFC title matchup or possibly a Super Bowl in the future. But they have an absolute flat-out superstar at quarterback. Just the way he handles himself, you wanted to see, like, and also when you take a look at LSU now, LSU is a wretched in college football. Take away Brady, who went over to the Carolina Panthers. Now you get Joe Burrow, who goes over to the Bengals. He is a flat-out superstar of epic proportions over the next 10 years, if they surround him with the talent that he needs. And you're also talking about yesterday, 4 out of 5 offensive linemen down for the Cincinnati Bengals. But even more so, you don't have Nixon in that game. You're leaning on Giovanni Bernard out of the backfield. And he made it happen. They got up early and held on. And how about if, for the total backers, a 27-point fourth quarter in that game? Massive game. Bengals, look, they're not going to make the playoffs this year. That is a tough division when you're dealing with Cleveland as well as Pittsburgh and also Baltimore. But baptism by fire for Joe Burrow. That kid's going to be a really, really nice football player. Raiders and the Browns yesterday. I agreed with the line move all week long. Opened up at 2.5, crashed down. Even some outlets had for a small portion of the morning yesterday a favorite of the Raiders, but ended up closing them in that Browns, -1, -1.5. But I thought the Raiders were the better team overall to fight those weather conditions. Big, nasty offensive line, quarterback with some mobility, really physical and fast tight end in Waller. But you also had that running back with Jacobs in the backfield that you can lean on in the game. And it turned out exactly that way. I mean, you had a 6-6 tie going into the fourth quarter. Raiders, to me, were the better football team on the day as well. I do want to go back and watch the second half in its entirety in that game, but I liked what I saw from the Raiders, and kudos to, John Gruden for coming up with a game plan saying we are really going to hand the football off, and you gave Josh Jacobs 31 carries in that game. That's the way you win football games, and I was really impressed by that overall. So the Raiders pull out the victory 16-6, showed me a lot, 4-3, right in the playoff mix now that we have those extra playoff leads in both the AFC and the NFC. Easy one that I picked off yesterday between the Colts and the Lions. And you're going to have somewhat of it this week is when we start breaking down these games heading into Tuesday and Wednesday, because you got a tough matchup on deck with the Colts and the Ravens. But the Ravens getting a little bit of that COVID bug. Marlon Humphrey tests positive for the Ravens. But that's for next week. I just want to talk about this game here. Opens up, and it's so interesting the way games go. Like the Colts scored 20 points in the second quarter, 21 in the fourth quarter, but none in the first and the third. So I had this game as a team total over 25.5, and I'm watching through the first quarter. I'm like, God, it's 0 points, man. I mean, the Colts are moving the football. They just can't punch anything in. And then all of a sudden the floodgates bust open and Phillip Rivers in a dome against a bad defense. That's where he's going to be able to operate. And he did yesterday, throwing those 3 touchdown passes in the second quarter. They don't score in the third quarter. Punch one in Red Ray in the fourth quarter, get an interception, return for a touchdown. Off they were to the races. Over under in this game, I believe, opened up around that 50-51 point and then dipped back into the high 40s. Easily covers that 41-21. And the whole premise of the game that you're coming into this and looking at the Colts, right? You're saying, well, how can I back the Colts in this game? Wasn't so much about backing the Colts, even though I love the spot for them. You have Frank Reich, who I think is one of the best, coordinators in the NFL / head coaches. You give him an extra week to prepare. You're going to get Mo Alley-Cox back, who played well again yesterday, coming back off that knee injury. You also had Trey Burton, that Swiss Army knife, getting into the end zone. So you had the 2 athletic tight ends. The one thing that put a little bit of a damper on it for me was at halftime, T.Y. Hilton goes down. He just can't catch a break and just stays injured. But they are a different team pushing the football down the field. Not to say he's making a lot of catches, but that speed guy on the outside, because even though you got Michael Pittman back off IR, the young kid out of USC, it was finally going to be nice to get all those weapons at wide receiver matched up with a good running game. Turned out it worked yesterday, 41 points over the Lions. Now you get another dome game, but you're going up against an ultra-physical team with the Baltimore Ravens coming to town on deck here. Oh, yeah. What you say, Joe? Every year, all you hear is the Lions this year. It is. You're right. You're so right. Because, the premise I brought up yesterday on our NFL show and Sportsbook Review with Kyle Proviance was, look last week. If Todd Gurley falls down at the 1-yard line, we're crushing the Lions and trying to throw Matthew Patricia out of town. Matthew Stafford can't get it done. You lose to the woeful Atlanta Falcons. But they won that football game because of that mistake. And then you got people believing in them again. Hey, 2.5-point line, 3-point line. That was a mismatch yesterday from head coaches all the way down through talent. And it was nice to see Ryan Kelly get activated on game day as well. So that worked out as a nice bonus victory here. The one game I did have circled early in the week for a team total and backed off, and it cost me money yesterday, was the Minnesota Vikings. Hovering around that 20.5 number, I wasn't physically sure what I was getting out of Dalvin Cook with that groin injury going into Green Bay, swirling winds in the mid-30s, wind chills in the 20s for a dome team going outside. But I was clearly wrong. 4 touchdowns by Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook got 30 carries on the ground for 163 yards. And the same adage goes. The Green Bay Packers got to be the softest team that we've seen over the past decade. A really good football team that when you just go mano a mano with them and say, we're going to run the football and beat you up, they just don't seem to deal with it. And Aaron Rodgers is a fantastic front-running quarterback and just couldn't bring his team once again from behind to beat the lowly Minnesota Vikings with a banged-up secondary and a team that looks like it was ready to quit on the season. They don't have any life at 2-5. They're not making the playoffs at 2-5, but that just shows you how good a football coach Mike Zimmer is to get this team up off the mat and perform. And kudos to Dalvin Cook, who when is healthy, single-handedly, man, one of the best backs in the game. No question whatsoever. That was a nice win by the Vikings. You know, on the show we did yesterday, I thought it was too many points to give the Vikings, but wasn't willing to back them myself. But also looking at that team total of 20.5, they covered that easily. Didn't even need to score in the fourth quarter as they put up a touchdown in the first quarter, touchdown in the second quarter, and 2 touchdowns in the third quarter to cover that game. One of the games first thing I did this morning, I usually wake up and, I have the laptop set up in a way where I can use the treadmill and get a workout in and watch NFL Game Pass. I'm not a glutton for punishment, but I like to see how teams operate. So I flipped on the Chiefs and the Jets game, and I just wanted to see how the teams were going up and down because I did have the game on because I gave out a best bet banker bet on the under 49 in that game. And I do have to apologize to everybody. I said the final score would be 35-10. It ended up 35-9. So I do apologize. I didn't hit that one right on the head, but it did stay under the total. The Chiefs did whatever they wanted on offense. And the same theory, if you're looking at DFS or even from a betting perspective, they covered the game. Yes. But in the fourth quarter, they put all the backups out. Starters come out for the Chiefs, backups come in. And that game really slowed down. But also, how about the Jets on this season? 3 straight games in the second half, they haven't even scored a single point. So if you're looking at the Jets, I know the team total was really low, somewhere around that 13.5, 14.5 number. You get 9 at the half, and it's going to be a blowout scenario, which it technically was at the half. They blocked that field goal, which would have given them 12 points if they would have made that. But then again, they wouldn't have scored in the second half and covered that total anyway. But I got to say that the Jets did operate in that game like a competent football team. They just don't have any firepower, and they just aren't able to stand up on defense against the Kansas City Chiefs offense. It was a dominant performance by Patrick Mahomes, 416 yards, 5 touchdowns. Travis Kelce, 8 catches, 109. A couple touchdown passes to Tyreek Hill on the outside. They did everything they were supposed to. But the Jets actually were competent on offense if you watch the football game. And outside of Denzel Mims, really their only legitimate wide receiver, and he's a young kid coming in as a rookie, I believe only his second NFL game. They're not really going to carry it, but I was kind of impressed the way the Jets, even though they scored 9 points and got shut out in the second half, they weren't embarrassing like a team I'm going to talk about in a little bit that we saw on Sunday Night Football. Coming and look at the Rams-Dolphins, Tua didn't have to do anything in this game. If I would have told you before the game, Jared Goff's going to come in and throw for 355 yards versus the Dolphins, that's an easy win for the Rams. They got blown out in this football game. 28-17 doesn't even do this game justice because the Dolphins kept piling on defense. And the one thing that you take a look at when you are betting the Los Angeles Rams, it always comes down to Jared Goff. The same way I bring it up with Cam Newton. You know almost right away what you're going to get out of both of these guys. If the offense is moving up and down the field in the first quarter for the Rams, that's going to be a really good Jared Goff performance. But if he's getting any pressure in his face, he just isn't athletic to get out of the way and make a play. And you saw that yesterday with the constant interceptions, the constant fumbles. Once you get that in the back of his head, it just seems like he's not able to perform. Nice win by the Dolphins. Brian Flores had an extra week to prepare for this game, almost like one of those traps, because even last week, early in the week, I'm going, how can I jump on the Rams at this -3 price, -120, whatever it is? I'm going to get a rookie quarterback that, hey, I mean, he comes in heralded, yes, top 10 draft pick, yes, but doesn't have the best football team overall around him. And you have a really good football team coming in with the Rams that can put a stop to it. So as you come in and check and go back and forth, it just doesn't make any sense. Like I'm trying to figure out and see, like, What is wrong with the Rams? Like, this is a game that if you're going to take that next step over here, it really has to make sense. They're good enough at wide receiver. They're good enough at tight end. They're good enough on the line. Their running backs are capable. Their defensive pass rush is good. The secondary is legitimate. And yet they lose games like this to the Dolphins, who now are 4-3 and actually fighting for a playoff spot in the AFC, which is crazy. And then the Rams now sitting back at 5-3. And you look at that and be like, you got to be better than that, Rams. The Rams are a better football team than 5-3 overall. You had the nice win over the Bears. You didn't have to do too much. And then you should have been able to replicate that type of effort against a rookie quarterback who barely did any damage. You didn't need to do any damage. They protected 2 in that football game. Brian Flores coached a great game, got the defense and the special teams rocking and ready to go, said, look, my young quarterback, just don't lose the game. Get your feet weight out here and we'll carry the weight for you. And they absolutely did that. They absolutely did that. One game that hurt me yesterday, ended up getting the push. And this is the difference between getting a good number, a bad number, and what number that you should have received. Sitting here all yesterday, I had my eyes peeled on the Steelers-Ravens game. Now, granted, Steelers team total was only 20 in that game. That wasn't the way I was looking. It was for the Ravens. But all week long from Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, that line was stuck at 24.5 for the Ravens. I waited. You saw the screenshots. It's going to rain. But anybody who was following this football game or doing their due diligence on this football game knew that that rain was going to clear out. And the rain cleared out early in that football game as well. So people that were hey, I saw a couple pictures from the guys in the media. It says, boy, it's really raining here. Didn't rain during the football game. You had no issues with that whatsoever. But the fact of the matter that really hurt this game was Lamar Jackson's fumble inside the 10 early in that game. But still, as a team total of 24, which I gave out to my players there for the 24, and is what I got first, 15 minutes later, that line dipped at some books to 23.5, which I personally took again myself, even though I really like the 24 number. But I was kind of upset. Like, I didn't see that 23.5 coming and think it would dip below that, but it did. Picked up the victory for myself, gave out a push, which I got my money back on that one, and also the one I gave to my players on that game, which was a shame because the drive where the Steelers or the Ravens took the lead to go up 24-21, that should have been enough to carry the game for the Ravens because there was a lot of time left in the fourth quarter, 12 or 13 minutes when the Ravens scored the touchdown to go ahead. All you needed to do was stop the Steelers from scoring a touchdown, and that put field goals back in play because as you watch the Ravens game play out, Steelers go down the field and score a touchdown, make it 4, and I'm going, So there's 7 or 8 minutes left in the game. It takes the field goal back out of play for the Ravens. And don't you know it? They drive right down the field, rushing the football, get it inside the 10-yard line. Lamar Jackson just wildly inaccurate, not really a quarterback. Interesting calls on 3rd down and 4th down. They don't end up getting that. But also, if that was still a field goal game at 24-24, they kick the field goal, you cover the 24 in that game. But then they make the stop, get the football back, get back close to the red zone again. And there you go. If it was a field goal game, they would have been able to kick the field goal, but they needed the touchdown. Therefore, we don't cash that football game in. I thought the Ravens were the right play in that game, dominated the football game for the majority of it, but you can't make that many mistakes as a quarterback, essentially giving away what would have been, on the fumble inside. Let's just say they don't even score a touchdown on that fumble play. They kick a field goal, that's 3 points. Let's not forget the first play of the game or second play of the game, whatever it was. He throws the pick 6. That's automatically a 7-point swing. And then also you're looking at the end of the football game, they couldn't punch it in, but also early third quarter when you have the 10-point lead. What a dumb pass out in the flat in the first minute of the third quarter, which really changes the trajectory overall of that football game. Wild stuff as you take a look, but I mean, that's just the shakes and the way it goes in that. Got the push from our players in that Ravens game, expected more, should have gotten more, and you just didn't have a good performance out of your quarterback to make enough plays in that game. And who didn't know on 4th and 3 that they were going to run a quarterback sneak? How about one of those plays that you see time and time again? You get the ball, you take the 1 step forward as a quarterback, the 3 linebackers come up, you step back, somebody's going to be open over the middle. And if they're not, Lamar Jackson is good enough to still scramble around and try to make a play. You didn't even give a run-pass option on that 4th down play. That's what I have the majority of the problem with when you're lining it up there. But that's neither here nor there. 4 o'clock, the 4:05 game. How about another blown game by Anthony Lynn with that Chargers game versus the Broncos? Broncos end up winning 31-30. And if you follow me on Twitter, this was the game I had on the board and was waiting to fire on. The Broncos team total over 19.5. It was a little bit juicy, so obviously they had to get to 20 points. So I'm watching this game. The Broncos got 3 points at the half. So I send out a tweet. Boop, boop, boop. Boy, save some money here by not going ahead with the game I had. Didn't even want to give the actual team out because it didn't even matter at that point. So I just say, you know what, save some money. And there it goes in the second half. They scored 28 points in the second half, win the football game outright. Drew Lock, what a fantastic comeback with it, because the guy I needed in that lineup, or the guy I figured I needed in the lineup for myself, was Tim Patrick, the wide receiver for the Denver Broncos, to give that 1-1A with Jerry Jeudy out there to try to balance it out. Take Tim Patrick down, who is their leading wide receiver for the Broncos. Said, you know what, let me stay away, even though Philip Lindsay is active. Philip Lindsay busts off that long run to give them 10 points and get them back into the football game. And then the Avalanche started, and the Chargers just don't seem like they have any way to back off of what they want to do on offense or defense, and that's a byproduct of the head coach. They're in good shape with Justin Herbert's over 3 touchdown performance there. So, I mean, they're in really good shape for that. In the future, these young quarterbacks here, most of them are going to be able to carry their freight. The Seahawks game, I got this. I didn't bet this game, but on the show, obviously, I like to give my input on each and every game. I thought the 49ers and that line move was the right play. The 49ers took the early lead, and they were just blown off the map. It's just Russell Wilson. DK Metcalf has grown into a combination of Randy Moss and Jerry Rice, absolutely unstoppable. They have nobody in the backfield. DJ Dallas is out here getting yards, 18 carries, 41 yards, and a touchdown in that game. DK Metcalf, 12 catches, 161 yards, and 2 touchdowns. It's so hard to stop that team. They're 6-1, and Russell Wilson is absolutely just incredible, man. Just an incredible man playing football. I don't know how you stop him. He just makes play after play after play. They got a good game coming up against Buffalo, and I look at that and already see that Seattle is a favorite over the Buffalo Bills coming into the game this weekend, which is astounding. Now, you know, we can get into the Chicago Bears game 26-23. Nick Foles gets the cover in that game. We knew the byproduct of that, what was going to happen. It almost got, you know what, look at that Bears, 13-3. They're the better team. I knew I shouldn't have bet on, Drew Brees outside. I didn't have a play overall in this game, but that Bears team total was extremely low. Both of these teams go over the team totals because you did get overtime in that game. Bears had a chance to win it, weren't able to get it done in overtime, and then the Saints were able to drive down the field and pick up the W in that game. The night game, and this is where I really get angry at times, because when I look at my board, like the pick 6 contest on SBR, I had the Dallas Cowboys plus 10, and doing the breakdowns of the game. I told you the Eagles were going to win this football game, but I'm not laying 11.5 is what it got up to on game day on the Philadelphia Eagles versus anybody a quarterback. So during the week, I gave my players the Dallas Cowboys team total over 14.5. So I was. Wish I would have pulled out that Ravens game, got the push on it, but picked up the victory early in the day with the Indianapolis Colts. But now, as I flip through, I'm like, I'm going to win this game at night, because just by default, the Dallas Cowboys are going to be able to score 17 points in this game, right? Because you have talent on Dallas. You don't have a ton of talent on the Philadelphia Eagles. We know Carson Wentz is turnover prone. He was turnover prone last night. If the Dallas Cowboys and Ben DiNucci didn't throw a single pass, like he was just a quarterback, caught the football and handed it off, I'm not so sure not only the Eagles even could win the football game, but the Dallas Cowboys would have ended up in that 20-point range. Now, when you go back and watch, like Ben DiNucci, and I'm not even being facetious here, I think like at my age, 43, I could have had 1 week of practice with the Cowboys to learn the playbook, and maybe have gotten a better performance out of me than you did Ben DiNucci. The interesting thing here is it's not that he was a 7th-round draft pick. It's not that he's, doesn't get a lot of work in practice. If you've played the sport, and he obviously played it at a high level in high school, went to Pitt, Division I, high-level football, played 6 or 7 games, whatever, over 2 years, transfers out and goes to JMU, and then goes to the championship game in FCS. So it's not as if he is a brand new type of person coming into football, right? So when you look at Ben DiNucci and the thought process on going behind what I thought I would get out of him, why I should have gotten that 14.5, what my thought process was, is all right. So you throw him into the game where he has no idea he's even going to play football versus the Washington Redskins. In the rain, they're getting blown up. Pass rush is crushing the pocket. You can't take anything away. So then you come into this week before the Philadelphia Eagles game, and you get a full week of practice. You're QB1. You're getting all the reps. You're getting all the attention from the coaches. They're building you up. They're putting in plays that are going to fit your style. And again, you're going up a Philadelphia Eagles defense who doesn't slow anybody down. 21 points plus each and every game they give up to anybody. It doesn't matter. Joe Burrow, 23 points, close to 40 points with the Steelers. As long as you have some competent playmakers, you can get after the Philadelphia Eagles. Even in the second half when they didn't even have Darius Slay, the only effective cornerback / DB that the Eagles actually have, didn't play the second half. But that's not the point. From the jump early in the game, from the very first snap, Ben DiNucci felt pressure that wasn't there. And I tweeted out right away saying, it's still 14 and a half, but this guy is horrendous. And it took one throw to figure that out. And if you watch that game going all the way through, I knew I was going to be in a dogfight, and I knew I needed a prayer to get 14 and a half points with Zeke Elliott running back, with 3 wide receivers that 2 of them could make possible all-pro teams throughout their career. Maybe the young kid out of Oklahoma, and also you're talking about Amari Cooper on the other side. And I thought to myself, even if this kid is bad, he can play, oh my God, somebody's wide open with a blown coverage on the Philadelphia Eagles because they just aren't very good on the back end. They couldn't move the football. And you got a gift on the opening drive. A couple of tricky rinky-dink plays. They end up kicking a field goal to get the 3-0 lead right off the bat. Now, the Eagles come back, and Carson Wentz does what he does. Doesn't like to throw the football away. He fumbles deep in Eagles territory. The Dallas Cowboys are handing it off. They get inside the 10 on a 1st and goal. The very first play is shotgun that they hand off, and it goes for a loss. They keep Ben DiNucci in shotgun again, and he has no idea what he's doing, gets pummeled by the pass rush, and drops the football. In games where you have a quarterback that can't play and should not be in the NFL, you can't blow those type of things. If they would have had 1st and goal, let's just say the 7-yard line, they line up under center and just hand the football off repeatedly, they were going to score a touchdown against the Eagles and a worst-case scenario field goal, which gave them 6. Then you saw again in the second half the razzle-dazzle play when they're running the football down the Eagles' throat and they lose 10 yards. And you're saying, what are you guys doing out here? And then even right down to the end of the football game where you're down 2 touchdowns, you can dink and dunk down the field. Guys aren't getting out of bounds. He's not making the right reads. He's getting sacked. Just looking at that game, I was at a loss for words. I never saw a player so not ready to play football who's played football his whole life, because we've seen really bad quarterbacks come through in the NFL. But it's very rare you see a guy, and it almost made me think of when other sports reach for players. Like in the NFL, like, boy, this guy has a really good arm. He only played baseball his whole life. Let's make him our 3rd quarterback and just try to work him in. He'll never play. And then he gets in the game like, oh my God, he's never played football before. I honestly thought if I came from outer space and watched the game midseason and I never heard of Ben DiNucci and I watched that football game with Ben DiNucci, I would have said to myself, this guy's never played football. Ben DiNucci has never played football before. What a shame. Like, why are the Cowboys making this guy that must have won like a raffle ticket off the street play football? Because it looks like he never played before in his entire life. That's exactly what I got from him. This wasn't Ben DiNucci coming to a football team as a 7th-round pick and having the Jets offense. No offensive line, no weapons, no running backs. Like, the guy should have been able to take a step back, wait 3 seconds, and launch a ball deep repeatedly to Michael Gallup, Amari Cooper, and CeeDee Lamb. He just couldn't do anything. He had no idea of the play clock in his head from dropping back. The minute he saw, like, I think Fletcher Cox probably just yelled across the line, hey, yo, rookie, I'm coming for you. And he was like, oh, my God, I don't want to be here. I'm so scared. How many times do you see him run parallel to the sideline? It was almost unbelievable. So I took that one on the chin last night, even though it came down to, again, they got into the red zone late in the football game and couldn't cash in to give me that lousy 14 and a half. That's a complete misread by me. And the number was only 14 and a half. And after the first drive of the game, even though they had 9 points at the break and just needed 2 field goals in the second half, and they got in the field goal range twice and couldn't make anything, 0-2 in the red zone without even getting a point, that's where the downfall was. But those are the things that really get you upset. But a high-scoring week, technically, for a lot of games that, had a lot of, rainy conditions, weather conditions, but teams still move the football after that. And Joseph Gomez, yes, Brett Favre eyeing another comeback after that game. I would agree. I mean, and again, yeah, Diego. I mean, the Eagles were awful in that football game. Awful. And still beat the Dallas Cowboys. Like, if you just wake up the next day, what was the final score? 23-9. Yeah, it's right. Yep. The Eagles covered the spread, beat the hell out of the Cowboys, and they move on. But it just goes to show you, if the Cowboys had, like, if Dak Prescott played in that game, the Eagles probably get beat 31-3. Honestly, they'd probably get smashed out of that football game. Well, that's just the way it is. Just wanted to come on and talk a little bit of Armchair Quarterback on Mondays. Fire up my StreamYard channel. It's been dormant for like the past month and a half, and just start talking some football. But I'm going to be on a little bit later with sportsbookreview.com on our Monday Night Football show. Join us there on the channel. I was also going to do a quick video here for good people at Pub Sports Radio. Thanks for joining me on Monday, playing a little